All right, so everybody, look me in the eyes and bear with me, all right? Because this one's a roller coaster. What we are looking at here is a 3 versus 3 tournament, not quite conquest, but a little bit conquest. All right, bear with me. So each team has brought 5 decks, and in those decks, they are allowed to overlap each region one time, but they are not allowed to play the same regional composition twice. For example, you can play Freljord twice, but you can't bring 2 Freljord Shadow Isle decks. Each team has to play each player within the first 3 games, and then for games 4 and 5, if it comes to that, you can play any players that you want, but you can't have the same player play games 4 and 5. So everybody gets to play, one person gets to play once, 2 people get to play twice if you are going to a game 5. Once you win with a deck, your team is not allowed to play it anymore. If you have lost with a deck, any other teammate can go ahead and pick it up. Once you have won with 3 of your decks, then you are declared the winner of the match. And because this is an invitational, they are straight away into the top 8, so this will be a single elimination event. Scout, Mirror. Well, maybe not Scouts, actually. We do see Garen down here for the bottom player. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's Demacia, but like...
It's the same thing, all right?
What if it's not Scouts? What if it's not Misfortune? What if it is something else? Something new and exciting that just happens to play Garen and Cytherea of Cloudfield that isn't a Bannerman deck somehow.
Is there anything that has Garen in it that's ever new and exciting? I don't think so.
I wouldn't know because it's new.
Yeah, Garen's like the most basic and unexciting champion in the entire game, I think.
Wow. I'm telling Garen you said that.
Hey, listen, all right? Now I'm actually trying to dig and think of what is possibly a less exciting champion.
It depends on how you feel about Fiora, I guess.
Fiora is like a different win condition in and of herself, so that by definition I think is at least a little interesting. But yeah, I think Garen takes the cake there. But we do see.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing about Garen is Garen's judgment potential blowouts.
Yeah, having the random second Garen in hand and surprising your opponent. Yeah, but we do see basically the exact mirror here. In these first couple of turns, we see a Cytherea on both sides. We might see a Bright Steel mirror as well, or possibly the War Chefs. I feel like
I think the War Chef makes a little bit more sense since you are getting that Protege down next turn.
I agree. Yeah, I think Sourf should play the War Chefs. Does go with the Bright Steel. I was just gonna say, psychologically speaking, I feel like seeing your opponent play a specific card that you have in the field's match, like I feel like that affects your thought process. Like you feel like you have to play the same card because it's like the same deck. I don't know. I could just be, completely out there with that, but I feel like I've definitely had that thought when playing exact mirror matches before.
If you guys run into SJW on ladder, now you know how to beat him. Just match him card for card.
Force my hand.
And he'll get all fumbly. I think we are going to see we even see the Bannerman picked up for both players on turn 4. I can't imagine we don't play the Protege here, right? Unless we're going for a turn 5 unyielding, but that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound like something we want to do.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I think you curve out. That's how Demacia works. That's your best chance of winning. You match the number on the card with the number of mana you have, and you press send, or press play, or press whatever to get the card on the field. I don't know. What is that action called of putting the card on the field? Playing
a card. You don't press anything. You just click.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
You actually stop clicking in order to put things into play.
Is there a keyboard shortcut to play a card?
I don't think so, because you'd have to highlight it with your mouse, so...
Well, no shortcut there. But yeah, we do see the Protege, and I imagine we'll see... On the flip side, because we also see a Bannerman, we'll probably see the Fleet Feather Tracker come down, and then the Bannerman on the following turn.
I mean, I guess we don't play anything pre-combat, just because you don't want that Fleet Feather to get eaten by the Protege. I think I would rather see that get killed if I'm Sourf rather than the Cytherea of Cloudfield. So good one on Jisoogirl to hold that one back until post-combat. Yeah, we throw out the Cytherea because we're fine trading that into our Bright Steel Protector. Everything making sense so far. Just some standard Bannerman turns. But as we get into the mid-game here, Jisoogirl is going to have the advantages. She currently has that Quinn, and Sourf tops out on that Bannerman.
Yeah, and we have the Cytherea. I mean, this is pretty good value on the side of Protege, not going to lie. Being able to pull this Cytherea here, get the other Cytherea chip damage through, but it looks like we are going to see a response on the side of Jisoogirl, so we'll see. Yep, she's going to go ahead, play that single combat, prevent that trade, but in all reality, still a decent trade on the side of Sourf. 2 cards down for 1, and getting a single combat out of Jisoogirl, which I mean I've mentioned this in the past, especially in mirror matches like this or mirror-ish matches, whatever you want to call them. You know, single combat's value just gets better and better the later into the game that we get. So getting one out this early feels really good.
Yeah, that definitely kind of felt like an awkward single combat to me. Just because generally you want to use single combat to either downtrade or to dodge removal so that you are getting an advantage out of the card. Here it is just a -1 on the side of Jisoogirl. I think we see the Bannerman in response now, unless, I mean, no, I don't think there's any play really except the Bannerman. The Ranger's Resolve doesn't really change much about the turn.
Yeah, I don't think it really provides any sort of like better trades. I mean, usually in this matchup, Ranger's Resolve does work. You're going to get so much value out of it just being able to trade above your opponent. So if we do eventually see a combat, this Ranger's Resolve will probably come in clutch. But on the side of Jisoogirl, that's not a good hand. I mean, if we do get the Quinn down, these Relentless Pursuits, like, they have potential because we have a Quinn in hand if we are able to level up the Quinn. But if this field gets dealt with before we can actually develop the Quinn, then it's just going to feel like two dead cards in hand.
Yeah, and I mean, with this Concerted Strike on the side of Sourf, I don't think the Quinn is going to actually stick. She's not going to be long for this world. You know, we do have the stats and the stats to actually get that one done. Ooh, Genevieve off the top would have been great. It's so weird because I don't think you ever want to pass your turn in order to get something like a Genevieve Relentless Pursuit turnoff, especially given that Sourf could just eat your entire board in the meantime before you can actually play the Genevieve with an open attack. So I do think you have to play the Quinn here. It's just a little bit awkward that it doesn't work out, but you don't have to do that until after Sourf has gone in for the attacks. So if Sourf just tries to play a weird pass game, maybe Jisoogirl comes out on top there, since she does have the Relentless Pursuits. But overall, I think Sourf is still going to be in a really good position, going to get down this War Chef and this Protege, and just really start to take control of the board. I'm hesitant to say I want to play this Quinn here because you do open yourself up to a War Chef kill with the bigger Protege.
Yeah, a 3/5 Protege. I mean, that's one of the best things about Proteges when it is buffed by something like Bannerman. That card is so good. It just does so much work when trading, especially in the mirror match. Getting that 3 attack basically allows it to kill anything. You can see here, killing a buffed up right steel. It can kill a Bannerman. It just does a lot of work. And yep, also gonna, yeah, we're buffing up the other War Chefs to trade onto the other Bright Steel. Now, I'm curious to see, I mean, we don't, again, have the deck list. I feel like the Scout version doesn't play as many Laurent Proteges, typically. Does that sound right?
No, I think that players have really started to value just having the additional challengers alongside the Misfortune. I think Protege has really made its way back into the
I know
list.
it fell off for a while, which was definitely interesting. I think it was mainly because everybody's like, oh, Scouts, this is a new thing. Let's play a lot of Scout units. And they just kind of were like, yeah, we don't need Laurent Protege. But yeah, I got to agree with you. That challenge tag, it just gets so much done.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, Protege definitely fell off when Badger Bear was first released, just because your 3-drop slot was kind of taken up by that, and I think Fiora was overwhelmingly what we were seeing at the time. Maybe it was still Misfortune, I'm trying to actually remember. But I think people were still figuring out the champion lineup. But yeah, once Badger Bear got nerfed down to a 3-4 and stopped seeing main deck play, everybody was like, okay, yeah, back to the Protege.
And we do see the Quinn. I mean, the Quinn is on the field. We have a lot of Scout units as well, so there is some potential for some things to be done here on the side of Jisoogirl, but the Concerted, we actually have enough mana for Concerted Strike and Ranger's Resolve. I'm trying to, is there ever a situation where you play this Resolve prior to the Concerted Strike? Does it get you any additional? Oh no, sorry, this is, I'm thinking single combat.
You're thinking it's double single combat again, aren't you?
Do you know how many times I expect this card to deal damage to your own units? Like, I literally just see this as 2 single combats.
That's what I thought the card did when it got spoiled. So when I was doing like my set review for Rising Tides, I was like, okay, yeah, this card's poo-poo. And then the first time it got played against me and my opponent's units lived, I'm like, uh-oh.
Good. You don't say. They only strike the other unit. The other unit just doesn't do anything in response.
And now this is, I mean, it's kind of awkward because Jisoogirl, there's no way that this Quinn is going to survive the second Concerted Strike that we see off the top that Sourf picked up. And Sourf, I mean, is kind of out of gas from here. I think he is just going to have to eat these Quinn attacks You know, 8 damage does get pushed through to you, but then you get to kill your opponent's Quinn on the following turn. Single combat is not something that is able to save something from a concerted strike, as the damage does still get dealt. But if we see a Ranger's Resolve off the top for Jisoogirl, maybe we actually do see her win the game by this Quinn surviving the concerted strike, because it is just going to be exact lethal onto that from Sourf, who is now actually lining up a block onto it. I don't mind this. You are saving yourself a bit of damage. There's no way that Jisoogirl will attack with it again, and you do have the proteges to try and kill it off on the following turn.
Yeah, this would be really weird if he locks in this block. I was going to say, if he locks in the Cythria, you can then pull the Quinn with the protege next turn. But I still think not blocking at all is probably the better option, because you do have that concerted strike. I mean, maybe just wants to save the concerted strike as backup. Now, the question is, do you play, and yes, he does play the Ranger's Resolve here to go ahead and save that War Chef's. Not going to save the Cythria, unfortunately, but still going to get 3 damage onto that Quinn, which is super important for next turn.
Yeah, Ranger's Resolve is a card that actually has really high perceived value, but we see players more willing to throw out for just sort of a 1-for-1 value than we do out of like Ruination or Reckoning or anything along those lines. You know, it's only played there to save the War Chef, and Sourf decides that that's enough. And now a Misfortune off the top from Jisoogirl would spell disaster if not for, this concerted strike. So yeah, I think that Sourf is going to really start to run away with this one here. If he ever draws a high-level threat, he does have that uncontested, unyielding spirit to come down onto it as well.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I mean, spending that 1 mana on the Ranger's Resolve last turn obviously puts you out of the range of being able to play Unyielding Spirit. So it's something to consider going into this turn, but I do still think that the Ranger's Resolve was the right play. You do get this War Chefs to continue to buff up the Laurent Protege, deal some more damage. And, I don't think you're really in a rush to play the Unyielding Spirit here. You will get it down. You want to be playing the Concerted Strike this turn to remove anything that your opponent could theoretically play. We see the Misfortune. But we do see a single combat come out in response. So still keeping one of the Laurent Proteges around. We could... Ooh, don't do it. Don't do it.
I don't like Concerted Strike to save this Protege.
Don't do it. He's got his hand over his mouth. Like, it really makes you think he's going to do it. Don't do it. Just don't.
I mean, this Concerted Strike is actually a lot lower value than you want it to be once you lose this Protege, because you're down to just only dealing 4 damage with it.
Well, this is a perfect example of, like, changing strategies. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Like, all right, so we've talked about this before with, like, all right, if you're trying to be aggressive, stay with the aggressive strategy. In this particular instance, it has nothing to do with aggression. It has to do with the original plan was block with Cythria, kill it with one of the Laurent Proteges. You're still killing it with the Laurent Proteges if you just let that single combat go through. So you should have just went with the game plan, I feel. And now you have to deal with a Misfortune that, I mean, I guess you could still block it with the other Protege, maybe, but it just looks really dangerous now.
It is a little awkward because you get the argument of, okay, yeah, now I can War Chef up this Protege to deal 4 damage to anything that I want to challenge, but that's also what Concerted Strike was representing, was 4 damage. And now, why are you playing this card?
What is that? What does that card do?
Take that out of your deck. I think I had a whole storyline, really early on in my casting career, where I would always only see this Radiant Strike out of Lucian decks, and like in every single Lucian deck, it was a one of.
Or like Zed or something like that. But yeah.
No, only Lucian decks, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's a flavor thing." I'm like, you don't build a deck and come into the tournament with the flavor in your deck. That's not something that people do.
If you have to dress as a pirate to play pirate aggro, you have to play Radiant Strike in a Lucian deck.
Yeah, and that guy got bodied, so you learned that cosplaying doesn't mean anything. Don't do it. It's dangerous.
Cosplay's bad. Oh, man.
But now we do get to see Jisoogirl start to pick off a lot of the board of Sourf. Could get 3 attacks this turn if she wants, which will clear out everything except for one of the Laurent Proteges. I'm curious to see if we actually have to see Unyielding Spirit come down onto the 3-attack Protege here.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it wouldn't be the greatest, but, you got nothing else to do with your mana this turn. You can play your whole hand if you want to. The Radiant Strike doesn't get anything done on this War Chefs, which feels bad, which is exactly why you should not be playing this card. And Yeah, I think you unyielding spirit this turn. There's no reason to not spend the mana and then just hate yourself next turn when you get like a Genevieve and you can't play both in the same turn.
I don't think he has to do that until we
Yeah.
see a couple relentless pursuits come out of Jisoogirl, though, who is going to fire off at least one. I think one is reasonable because you get another free kill onto the Fleet Feather tracker. I then think you actually do go for the second one so that you take away the protege that can kill your misfortune. But maybe we actually just go for the protege here and save that second pursuit.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here on this next attack. Does this okay? Does this ever like where does this pursuit get value? If this protege pulls the 3/2, then that's great
Yep.
with this Radiant Strike. That's going to be absolutely amazing for Sourf. If okay, that is like
I mean, do you just trade proteges at that point?
uh
Unless you go Radiant Strike and Unyielding,
no, if you play the Radiant Strike on your protege here, it lives.
then you die to the
Oh, that's
Misfortune
right,
ability.
Misfortune's ability. So so what are you're saying Unyielding Spirit and Radiant Strike, or you just let this go through?
I mean, I I think it's not unreasonable to play both. You get to kill your opponent's protege. Your unit gets to survive. You get to kill the Misfortune with it next turn.
That seems crazy.
Oh, actually, we're just gonna go in with the Misfortune. You don't even have to do that now. You can just block it with the Fleet Feather and
Yep.
play the Radiant Strike onto that. But I still think you want to
Yeah.
Unyielding Spirit this 3 attack
Yeah,
protege.
you'll do the damage onto the other protege. It'll be able to trade with it next turn. It still nets you the one unit that you're going to keep on the field. So, yeah, 100%. I think this whole hand should just be exhausted right here.
I don't think it's unreasonable, that said, to actually just let the MF attack go through, still do the Radiant Unyielding onto the single protege, and then just challenge her next turn.
Yeah, that's obviously an option as well.
But I think no matter what, you do play both cards in your hand this turn.
Yeah. Yep. There's. Oh, he didn't do it. He didn't do it. I feel like. I really hope he's not. I hope that Sourf isn't trapping himself into like, all right, I must play this card on a Genevieve. Like that'll feel really bad if that's like his thought process right now.
I mean, he's playing for his top decks. Both players are sitting at one card in hand and clear boards, but we do see players struggle to top. Like, if you draw another Cithri of Cloudfield here, how long he's got the life advantage.
Ooh.
So I think it is actually reasonable to hold it back and actually gets
Wow.
rewarded. We see the immediate Garen top deck, and Jisoogirl is pretty far off of killing you. You're at 18 life. Even if she gets the better top decks for 2 or 3 turns, that's a lot of time that you can spend digging for a high priority target, and you have seen none so far this game. It's pretty reasonable you'll find one.
This Garen, wow. Kind of feels bad that you can't play the Unyielding Spirit this turn, but it won't matter. This Garen will live pretty much no matter what. This is...
Well, if you go in with the Garen and Jisoogirl blocks with the Quinn, she can then Relentless Pursuit to clear the board. I don't know if she's going to be willing to do that, though, since there is still one card in the hand of Sourf, and she will be in top deck mode, and she's this far down on life. She's maybe only got a turn or 2 before Sourf actually kills her.
Yeah, I mean, all right, listen, if she makes that play specifically to remove the Garen and has like the 3,000 head play or 3,000 head read that there's an Unyielding chilling in hand because it hasn't been played, that's pretty damn good. So we'll see. Oh, nope. Look,
Okay, so Sourf has the 4,000 level read of what if you have Relentless Pursuit? This is how I let my Garen live.
Oh man, Sourf playing around the play around of the play around. If that, wow, I don't see why you pull the Quinn unless you actually make that specific read. I think it kind of stinks because you are going to lose this protege almost no matter what if you do attack this turn. Looks like he's considering not. I feel like you have to always attack with the Garen. Like, are you really playing around losing your Garen to a Relentless Pursuit here? Wow. Looks like he is.
I guess the answer is yes. He says, you know what? I actually don't need to attack with this Garen. Your board really isn't that threatening. If you try to pull my Garen to the side to push damage next turn with the Scout attack, then I do still get to Unyielding. I get to double strike next turn. I'm going to level up the Garen no matter what. I can actually slow roll this one because I have the bigger unit. I just need to play it safe, not take any risks. There could be a riposte or something in Jisoogirl's hand that For whatever reason, she didn't throw out onto the Misfortune to save last turn, but who knows? Maybe it's a read that you're still going through. Maybe you weren't hand tracking. You think the Quinn was the top, or the Quinn was still on top of deck. There's a couple things that would be going through his mind. I don't blame him for playing safe and just saying, as long as I get unyielding onto Garen, I can't lose.
Yeah, and basically what that does is it puts Jisoogirl on, okay, if you don't top deck something like a Genevieve or a Garen, or, well, you don't play Garen, so a Genevieve or another Quinn or something next turn, you just lose because, yeah, the Garen's the bigger unit. It will have unyielding plate on it, and wow, we even see a Radiant Guardian come down now. I think that is definitely going to put Sourf way in the lead here. He can even bait out a repost, then play the Unyielding Spirit, and basically just nullify whatever gets reposted.
I feel like she's going to proactively repost. Never mind. Is just going to challenge first.
Yeah, I don't think you ever proactively repost. I think you wait for the blocks to get lined up, right?
I mean, if you challenge the Garen, then you would have to repost now, because if there isn't a block onto the Quinn, then your opponent just hits okay and Garen just kills the bird.
Okay, so actually just offering up, okay, I'll let you decide who you want to block. Wow.
And this screams repost,
yeah,
right?
I mean, it must. And that's probably what Jisoogirl's thinking is like, okay, if my opponent is thinking I have repost, maybe they just let the damage through and I just get some free damage sunk in, and then I can...
Could you imagine if we saw this play and she didn't draw repost and she just had that 5,000 level thing?
The bluffs. Oh, man. And, okay, gonna line up the Garen. So, yeah, I do think we will see the repost onto the Quinn. You don't ever play Unyielding Spirit yet. You don't. There is never... Why?
Because if you... Now, I was going to say you're playing around double single combat or concerted strike, but you're really not.
No. You don't ever play this card before your opponent plays something. Why?
I mean, what is she going to do? Repost to save the Quinn and then just still bump off the Garen?
I mean, why? That's two Ys in a row. Like,
eventually you are going to have to proactively use this.
Okay, so... Alright, so I guess the same result happens, but in a really messed up, weird way. I don't know why that just happened the way that it happened, but it did.
Now we get the Radiant Guardian down, and I'm pretty sure that is just going to be Sourf completely taking over this one. Yeah, I mean, Repost Quinn were good top decks, but they're not as good as Garen Radiant Guardian.
Yeah, Garen Radiant Guardian, probably two of the best 5-drops you ever want on the field, period, in all of Legends of Runeterra. And also one, not to mention one can't die, ever. So Garen's sticking around to definitely level up and provide a rally token every damn turn.
Okay, I was like, why are we going in with the Quinn? There's a Radiant Guardian and an Undying Garen.
Oh, that's what I want to see today. I want to see another Undying win the game. All right, that's what I need in my life.
And I mean, we don't have access to the deck list, but I am hard pressed to think that Jisoogirl main decks an Unyielding Spirit of her own. I think, we saw this out of Sourf's team yesterday. I believe they're the only ones that are playing that card currently. And a big part of that probably is because you are playing the Garen instead of the Quinn.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there. Not to mention the Radiant Guardian is a damn good Unyielding Spirit target as well. But we see the Radiant Guardian drawn by Jisoogirl, but I just... Once you have that Unyielding Spirit down successfully on any sort of 5-drop in this deck, I think it's just going to be really hard for Jisoogirl to ever win this game. And we do see the Misfortune looking like she's going to hit the field as well.
I like the Misfortune. It takes the option of Jisoogirl protecting any of her units with a riposte off the table. And I think that the only thing you're really worried about is this Quinn potentially taking over the game, constantly scout attacking you, the Valor coming out and pulling the Garen to the side so that it can't block it. I don't think there's any... I mean, without the deck list in hand, I don't know if there's anything Jisoogirl can top deck to get her way out of this. An Unyielding Spirit might be able to get it done depending on what else is top decked for her, as well as what Sourf draws in the meantime. But I'm really hard-pressed to imagine her coming back into this one.
Nah, she's done. She's done. Because even this attack with the Misfortune, I mean, it trades with the Quinn. But worst case scenario for Sourf, it trades with the Quinn. You lose the Misfortune, but you also kill the Quinn. And then this block by the Protege is just absolutely useless. Still going to squeak through 6 damage. I mean, it's basically game over at this point. The Radiant Guardian will come down, and it'll probably drag this game out for, like, I don't know, 2 more turns or something like that. But Otherwise, this game is looking like it is going to be over.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this ends on Sourf's next attack turn. The attack turn that he gets on Jisoogirl's turn will probably just get kind of snuffed out by that Radiant Guardian.
Well, we do have a rally next
Uh,
turn.
Actually, no, I lied. Radiant Guardian won't work on Garen because it doesn't deal any damage.
Oh, so Unyielding Spirit, technically, yeah, it just doesn't do anything. It doesn't take damage, doesn't do anything. Well, so then it has to
Yeah.
block the other Radiant Guardian then, right?
And that's not enough to survive. You'll only gain 4
Yeah.
life, and Garen has 6 attack.
Yep. So yeah, I think just an attack here. Okay, well, that's a thing. So again, just dragging this out a little bit more.
I mean, once again, mirror match, baby. We get the Brightsteel Protector down onto our own Radiant
Let's do it.
Guardian.
Let's see it. I want to see it. I don't think actually you even need to. You know, you're probably better off just playing it next turn, and you can go in with a barrier on your attack.
I mean, like, Sourf can just attack with the Garen here. What is Jisoogirl going to do? She's going to have to block with the Brightsteel Protector. You go in with your Radiant Guardian. I block that with my Garen, and you haven't done anything this turn. Then I go for the Garen and Relentless or Radiant Guardian attack next turn.
We'll see. It looks like Sourf is thinking about it. It's so crazy to me sometimes how we as casters we're looking at this game from like a bird's eye view, and it just seems so clear as to who is winning this game at certain points, and yet the players obviously are still like, how do I lose this? like what am I doing wrong? Was that last play I made right? And we're just sitting here like, no, you've already won. You just have to like end your turn. like.
I've tried incorporating caster vision more into my own gameplay and just being like, okay, yeah, no, there's nothing that exists here, and if there is, then at least I got a learning experience so I can bring this up on cast later and everyone can laugh at me and we'll have a good time together.
God, that sounds rough. Do you have like your caster self talking in your head and then like your gaming self talking in your head? That sounds like a battle.
Kinda.
Caster self is probably the more rational of the two, and the other version is just like, no, I'm playing this because I know it's the right card to play. I don't care what you say.
Why are we blocking with... I mean, okay, it'd be understandable if Sourf doesn't really recognize the minute interaction between Lifesteal and Unyielding Spirit.
Yeah, that is... Maybe he's checking it? I'm not sure. No, he's
not very tough. That's the wrong keyword.
Yeah, but even if you don't understand that interaction, why would you ever not block with Garen? Because he doesn't take damage.
You don't want your opponent to gain the life.
Oh! So you're using the barrier instead to prevent the life gain. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes.
And then you go for this attack. I think you attack with the Radiant Guardian or the Brightsteel Protector last though. Actually, I mean, I don't think you need to attack with anything but Garen. I don't think it matters too much. There's not anything that Sourf can do from this position to actually lose.
I don't think you ever block the... I think you have to block the Garen with the Brightsteel, and then you block... Yeah. Okay, now switch the other one. Switch... Nope. Nope, change it. Brightsteel goes to Garen. Radiant Guardian...
Everybody is now understanding and learning that Lifesteal does not work on Unyielding Spirit in real time.
This is a learning process. There we go.
Okay, we found the one that lets us live at 1. Once again, does not matter because then we just get an open attack out of Sourf, and even if it's a concerted strike or a single combat, it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, it's just going to be game over here. That Relentless Pursuit, we've seen it time and time again, just hanging out in hand, saying, hey, I'm just here to chill, not here to be useful, just going to hang out while you lose this game real quick. And he keeps, I guess he's going to play it just for the sake of playing it.
I can't believe that Sourf's Radiant Strike got more value than Jisoogirl's Relentless Pursuit.
I know, yeah, right? Well, actually, no, I can believe that. I can totally believe that. With how many times we've seen Relentless Pursuit just be completely dead useless, yeah.
All right.
Like,
I have a question for you. You're playing Scouts on Ladder. Do you put Relentless Pursuit in your deck, or has the caster vision blinded you to it and just say, okay, I could never play this card?
If I do play Scouts, which I tend to like not want to play it because to me it's like very boring because it's just the same thing every single game. I usually only play like 1 or 2 copies. I can't bring myself to play 3. I just can't do it.
All right, so we are, as you said, going to have Icarus versus DK. Icarus on the top again, busting out the mobilized dragons. Just another team that has decided that the Lux Acel is not something they want to be going for. And on the side of DK, we're going to have that. I'm just going to say tried Pirate Burn. I don't want to say tried and true, as it has not been having the most success thus far in this tournament.
Oh man, and yeah, if you are just joining us today too, this is mobilized. This is dragons. It's an interesting deck. It seems to not be terrible. It is a thing, so we'll see how it's able to pair up against yet another pirate burn deck. So are we just gonna kind of agree that this is underperformed today?
Oh, I think it's inarguable. Given its win-loss ratio, you'll see that there are a few more L's than W's, and it's hard to call it a good deck when it's got something like a 20-30% win rate.
Have you seen it win?
I think we've seen it win once, but I think we've seen 5 or 6 games of it.
Yeah, it is fairly highly represented in this tournament, which is weird because it hasn't. We've seen discard aggro, I think, more from the West in NA and EU.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so this deck did just kind of come into play really earlier on this week, or maybe at the end of last weekend. I don't think it was prevalent in last week's tournament scene. I think that it is going to be a lot more popular this week. And I'm not sure if that is Korea having an influence over the Western meta, or if it was just earlier this week that people kind of figured it out, and this was the first tournament that we got to see it in.
Yeah, we do see the 2 precious pets start from the side of DK. We'll see what Icarus is able to do to stave off some of this early aggression. We have all right, well, moment of truth. We have 2 mobilize. We do have 2 units in hand. This is kind of one of the reasons why mobilize has not been played, generally speaking.
Yeah, that's not enough. That's not enough value.
Well, even if you get both,
but maybe
it's just not good.
I could see playing 1 just so you can get the Screeching Dragon down next turn, because I don't think you can kind of sit here and wait for these. I mean, you could also wait until next turn and then mobilize into Screeching Dragon, use your spell mana. It's a little mana inefficient, but maybe you do get that reduction down onto a 3rd unit.
Well, I mean, you could even be mana efficient. And wait, can you do the Shield Bearer in single combat this turn to remove a precious pet and then mobilize next turn?
Yeah, you could. It takes. I was going to say, you can't mobilize next turn if you do that. If you mobilize first, though, you can, because you get the Shield Bearer. But now the Shield Bearer doesn't get the Daybreak ability.
Yeah, I wonder if that I wonder if that was taken into consideration on the side of Icarus. So we'll see what the next play is. I feel like it doesn't matter.
Now do we just
attack turn, right?
Do we just single combat into the Misfortune?
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, that is definitely a high priority target to kill, but it looks like not going to go ahead and do that. And what stinks too is with this Shield Bearer only having 2 health, it actually doesn't really trade with anything well on the field. Like, it even dies to these precious pets, which just feels really terrible.
I like the open attack out of DK here. This is not a deck where you're playing for a Misfortune level up. You need to play a little more aggressively with this champion. You have to be willing to throw her life away in order to get trades and let your other units get through, and just kind of accept her as a unit that is going to only deal 1 damage on attack. Kind of like the Crackshot Corsair, but a little bit more cracked up to 3 attack and HP. But yeah, I really like going in with this. You're never going to level this card.
A little bit more cracked up.
Yeah, I didn't want to take a different
I didn't want to let that one fly without saying anything, so I just had to mention that. I like it though.
The Make It Rain could come out here to actually protect the Misfortune as well, and that is what we're going to see. I think this is going to demand the single combat out of Icarus onto this Misfortune.
Yeah, you might have to at this point, just so that he does mitigate some future damage, right? I mean, that Misfortune sticking around is going to mean more effects being procced and just so much going wrong on the side of Icarus.
I think the single combat has to come out of Icarus. Concerted Strike doesn't matter because your Shield Bearer is dying anyway. You might as well single combat. Do we then see Noxian Fervor out of DK from the Misfortune onto the face?
Let's see. That's going to put him at 15. It's going to put him at 8, right? Or 9?
I think 9, yeah.
And then he's got 4 in hand. I say hell yeah. Because I mean, we do see a star shaping on the side of Icarus, which will, it's another 5 health. It's going to be hard to deal with. But honestly, with how the hand of DK is looking, it's looking really likely that he's going to be able to push some more damage in the next couple of turns.
And it looks like this is how the stack is going to play out. That's going to be Icarus falling down to 9, losing his board. DK still has the 2 precious pets. This Demolitionist that we see in DK's hand, this card has felt so awkward in this deck. Between this and Jack the Winner, you're just not playing units that are really healthy enough for you to consistently be throwing damage at them like this.
Yeah, the precious pets feel really bad with Jack the Winner. I gotta lie. I'm not gonna lie. I gotta agree with you there. It's and I feel like we've seen it more often than not, right? Even with the Imperial Demolitionist coming down, it does and that's the thing, right? Then you also have Imperial Demolitionist. You have Jack the Winner and Imperial Demolitionist that are trying to deal damage to its own units, but then you have Legion Saboteurs and Precious Pets in the deck that don't really want to take any damage. So I don't know. It's a little bit counterintuitive as far as the deck is concerned, but
yeah, what we're saying is turn this into a Vladimir deck, put them Crimson Disciples back in there, throw that Edwin back in there, get Vlad himself in the mix, something to deal a little bit. Sure, she doesn't deal 2 damage, but if you're hitting her with a Demolitionist, then it's 3 damage anyways. It's not good. Don't play Crimson Disciple.
Well, all right, so are we under the assumption that all these Pirate Aggro decks are not playing Disciple?
I haven't seen any lists that are.
I haven't seen it in the games that we've played. I have seen lists that play it, but I mean, I gotta figure, especially with Jack the Winner, Crimson Disciple is probably just a better option. I just don't. I mean, Saboteur and Precious Pet are 1-drop, so they kind of almost have to be played in an aggressive deck, but I don't know. I mean, maybe you go a different route. Crimson Disciple just seems like it's a lot healthier to, combo with Demolitionist or Jack.
Yeah, and maybe it was just the matchup that we saw earlier today. We did see the Pirate aggro into the Draven Ezreal, and you really couldn't afford to throw Sleep with the Fishes onto Jack because you had to respect things like the Ravenous Flock and the Noxian Guillotine. In this matchup, you really don't. I think that your Jack does get a little bit more value throwing the Sleep with the Fishes down onto himself. We actually are going to see the Barrel. This is a play that I like a lot because the Barrel interacts the same way it does with Noxian Fervor, where you can Sleep with the Fishes onto that, still get the damage on the face, and that... I mean, I want to say that I'm surprised that these Pirate aggro decks don't play Dreadway Deckhand for a combo like this, but at the end of the day, they are only playing the 3 spells, I guess 9 spells, but it's 3 Make It Rain, 3 Noxian Fervor, 3 Decimate, so I understand not playing the Dreadway Deckhand for that. Petty Officer is a little more versatile.
And we do see the Shield Bearer come down on a good turn now, being able to get that 6 health on a defensive turn. See if it comes into play here. But like you just mentioned, we are going to go ahead and take the opportunity to play Sleep with the Fishes on the Barrel. And we'll see if... I don't know. I mean, do you Concerted Strike to avoid taking this damage here?
I don't think you do. I think you want to Comet Jack the Winner because the Hush or the Concerted Strike would save you 3 damage. But if your opponent fervors in response, it feels really weird. I think you really just do need to prioritize getting this Jack off the board and kind of hope that the Star Shaping getting you up to 11 is going to be enough because there is only 9 damage left in the hand of DK.
Yeah, and I listen, I don't want to call it too early, but we might actually see a win out of this Pirate aggro deck here. Just, kind of looking at how things line up. I do think you're right. I think the Comet will likely come down on Jack the Winner here. And we do have Star Shaping kind of as a backup to heal back up a little bit, but there's just a lot of damage still to come out of DK. 4, 5, 6, that's 9. Looks like the Star Shaping will put Icarus back up to 11, so it'll be really close.
Yeah, I mean, he's hovering Concerted Strike as well. I think either one is relatively fine. I kind of like keeping Strike available as an answer to a Fervor a little bit later on. We saw the Draven Ezreal deck, consistently picking off those Demolitionists in response to their own abilities. So I do like using the slow removal where I can, but we are going to go ahead with this Concerted Strike, and we'll have to see if this actually does come up later, not being able to be used to deny a Fervor.
Yeah, I'm a little curious as to why the Concerted Strike. I feel like you always have to... A fast removal spell is always more valuable, I feel, than a slow removal spell, unless you're comparing, I don't know, to Ruination or something like that. But generally speaking, I think the Concerted Strike is going to be far more useful in so many more situations.
Oh.
And, okay.
And
wow.
Icarus actually misordered that as well. Doesn't get the kill with the Screeching Dragon, so it is going to stay a 5-4. Could have gotten that up to a 6-5.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I'm not sure it'll come into too much play later, but wow, a Jack the winner off the top. God, one thing that feels bad is when you kill a unit and it literally just comes down right after you get rid of it.
And this actually could be really big because if Icarus wanted to, he could try and pass the turn here and just say, you're not allowed to play anything because I have the Screeching Dragon, I'll star shaping and just pass my turn. We can go comet whatever I need to next turn. But because he missed out on the kill with the Screeching Dragon, this actually can't kill Jack the winner.
Yeah, the Screeching Dragon cannot kill it, so that does actually come into play here. And if he does go below 6 mana, he won't be able to comet Jack the winner as well. So we'll see if... I don't know. I mean, on the side of DK, do you just pass back over and let the attack happen so your Jack the winner doesn't take any damage? Or do you play the Jack the winner here and risk it getting 5 damage pushed through to it?
I don't think the 5 damage getting pushed through to it would matter. I don't see a world where
He actually challenges it.
Icarus actually just challenges that. Yeah, I think it'd make more sense to eat something like a Precious Pet and then have the attack to block the Jack next turn. But getting that extra sleep with the fishes, as long as Jack gets to stick around for the turn, you're feeling pretty good. I don't think it's unreasonable to comet the Jack as soon as it comes down, just because your opponent's not going to have any mana to kill you. They can deal 3 at most, but that's not going to be enough.
Yeah, I like this pass for the chance to like bait something else out for a play to potentially put Icarus below the 6 mana needed for Comet, because I don't really think having Jack on the field would have mattered too much, because like you said, I feel like Icarus is just going to go ahead and Comet the Jack the second it hits the field. So we'll see if something else does come out. I highly doubt he just like randomly plays Star Shaping or something like that. I feel like...
It wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. Given the cost of his hand, I could see him trying to be mana efficient and thinking, okay, there's really nothing that my opponent could play here that I'm worried about. Let me just throw out the Star Shaping. But I don't see a world where DK doesn't slam down Jack post-combat. Just like says, okay, I have nothing to play. I'm going to go ahead and pass priority. And then Icarus goes for a Star Shaping.
Yeah, that would be... I don't know if DK passes back. I think now that the attack has been taken on the side of Icarus, I think he kind of has to play Jack the winner. Looks like he's going to go with the Noxian Fervor first, which, I mean, this might... So if he goes with the Noxian Fervor, he actually still has the mana for Jack, and that would potentially get the Star Shaping out.
Well, he also has the mana for Decimate.
Yeah.
And I think, there is a good amount of potential for him to just play the Decimate here. Is going to go for the Jack instead. So that should be the Comet coming down. I kind of liked the Fervor onto face. I think that it did kind of entice your opponent to go for Star Shaping now. I don't think it changes the outcome of the match overall. It does play around single combat a little bit better.
Yeah, the unfortunate part is, like, in a perfect world, DK wants to get Icarus, like, below 5 mana and then be able to play the Decimate and them not, Icarus not be able to play Star Shaping. But, like, I'm pretty positive that's actually never going to happen. I don't think Icarus would let that happen. So we'll see.
I don't think Icarus can let that happen.
Can. Not being at 4 health, like it's no way. But we do see the Comet come out. And now being at 3 mana, DK does not have quite enough. Feels so close. 1 damage off. But honestly, any sort of burn here drawn off the top. Okay, that'll do it. Yep, he feels pretty good now.
That's pretty good.
That's a good card. And that'll put... All right, so that's going to put Icarus at 3 mana. So now the question is... I mean, I think you just rip the other Decimate. And there's actually... Is there Guiding Touch? Guiding Touch wouldn't even do it either, though, would it? Wait, 5... Yeah, no, Guiding Touch would.
Guiding Touch would be exactly lethal.
Okay. Unfortunately, can't... He doesn't actually have lethal this turn, though, right? So he still needs to wait next turn to play something like that Fervor. Might actually go for it this turn with his opponent being on only 3 mana, but you're going to be worried about something like single combat.
Yeah, I think we are just going to see the second Decimate instead. And this, I mean, even if we do see the Pirate aggro pick up a win here, I'm still not willing to say that this is like a great deck. I mean, it was really just like the second or the third Decimate even. This is the third Decimate, right?
That's the second. Yeah, this would be the third one. I believe so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like if it takes you 3 Decimates to win a game, you can put that in any deck.
So I tend to agree with you. Decimate, it blows my mind how that card used to cost 4. But yeah, Decimate in general is just good. It's straight up damage to the face. if you draw 3 as an aggro deck, you're pretty much, pretty easy path to victory, so to speak. And even now with the 3 decimate, it's still close. Like any sort of combat trick drawn off the top by Icarus could still save him the game. That's not going to do it. So if it comes down to it and DK is forced to just try to go for the victory, DK will be able to take this one home here.
Man, so 3 Jack the Winner, 3 Decimate. There's so much that I get to sort of relentlessly roast this game. You know, the mobilizes sitting dead in Icarus's hand, never finding any value. The fact that it takes 3 Decimate and 3 Jack the Winner for Pirate Burn to finally pick up a win on camera. I'm having a good time.
Yeah, Pirate Burn, I think we talked about this before. The last format wasn't that great. Definitely picked up a little bit with something like Jack the Winner. It definitely feels a little bit better, but still doesn't really feel like it's one of the best, most competitive decks in the format, let alone just the best aggro deck, right? So we'll see what Icarus decides to go with here. You might know this is probably over. You gotta figure, with 2 cards in hand, your opponent, one of them might be something that's gonna kill you.
Yeah, and even if it's not, I think Icarus still needs to try and find lethal this turn, because if that top deck from DK was a Jack the Winner or a Gangplank, you don't have a way to deal with that, and a Gangplank open attack would just be lethal. If you hush him after the fact, it doesn't matter because the ability's already on the stack. If you hush the barrel, it doesn't matter because you're only at 1. And yeah, he is going to go for lethal here, throws down the Destroyer.
And I guess at this point, on the side of DK, like, your opponent has lethal, so I think you just rip the fervor. You throw the Jack the Winner out, you rip the fervor onto the Jack, and you just pray your opponent doesn't have, at this point, a Concerted Strike or a single combat. Only have 4 mana.
He's out of Concerted Strike range, yeah, so it would have to be single combat. But we know that he doesn't have it. Instead, he's got a Mobilize.
Best card in the game right there. To his defense, he did draw 2, and not only that,
I feel like that's supposed to be better.
Well, it's better if it's the only 2 spells you draw in like the first 4 turns, but it wasn't. He drew a lot of spells in the beginning.
I think we had touched on earlier how I was actually surprised to see Hush in this deck, just because you are supposed to be going for this very, very unit-heavy deck to get the maximum mobilize value. And, I mean, we don't see Hush come up in this matchup. Obviously, there are matchups where it's very good, but I don't know that it's better than having more units to try and get these high-roll mobilize hands. I can definitely see it once the deck moves away from mobilize, which I think it eventually will. But in the mobilize version, I think that Hush is an odd choice.
Maybe, just worried about like Ezreal matchups. I mean, there's a few different decks you might want to play Hush for just to kind of counter, but I tend to agree with you. I mean, if you're playing mobilize, literally the first thing I'm going to do is open up the deck and see like the follower to spell ratio and like tell you whether or not you should just take mobilize out of the deck. And if there's like more than 6 spells, probably shouldn't be playing 3 mobilize.
Yeah, so here we're going to see the Hush onto the Noxian Fervor say, shh, take the order away. No damage going to come at the Nexus. Oh, wait, that's not how Hush works. Instead, we're going to throw it out to silence the Jack the Winner, which will do absolutely nothing, and that is going to be DK moving up 2-0 in this series.
Nice. DK of Team SSD, 2-0 here. Going to go ahead and get into... Wow, did you... Wow, okay, wow, you're not lying. That's this matchup. That's... We have so now we've seen a lot of ASOL, right? We've seen a ton of ASOL in this tournament. Yeah. Not the kind of this is kind of like the deck that pioneered Aurelion Sol, the original Aurelion Sol deck of Trundle ASOL, just kind of ramping up to that Trundle, hopefully, on turn 4, which it looks like we'll see here, into a late game Trundle late game Aurelion Sol for the victory.
Yeah, okay, so we've even got the Teemo version coming out of Nangu. I feel bad because I don't, how do I describe this? I like Teal Red. And for those of you that are unaware, Teal Red is not only the inventor of this Harrowing Ezreal deck, but also the pioneer of the Targon Ezreal list that we saw in tournament for the first couple of weeks and has really fallen off since then. And I feel like he makes very good Ezreal decks for ladder. And I feel like the decks that he makes get really heavily pushed into tournaments, and then nobody ever really finds success with them. Mm-hmm. This is one of those decks. We've seen 4LW have some success with it in 8-man invitationals, and I think he had an okay amount of success in an open event, but for the most part, they just do not get the job done. They are not as consistent as something like Karma Ezreal or Twisted Fate Ezreal.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I mean, this deck did see some play, and now it's just it kind of disappeared up until just the second. I think actually, did we see one person play it last week? I feel like we did.
I maybe, but I think it was
Well, it might have been
4LW again.
4LW, yeah. And I mean, 4LW obviously has played some funky decks previously, so it doesn't really surprise me there. So we'll see if it's able to kind of get its footing here in this new format of, just lots of Aurelion Soul. We'll see if it's kind of the counter to some of these Aurelion Soul decks here.
It feels like there are some diehards on the teal red Ezreal decks. I'm not super surprised to see no Targon Ezreal in a tournament like this. I think we have pretty much seen that deck completely fall to the wayside. People understanding that cantrips aren't enough to get it done, gems aren't enough to get it done. Getting all 4 hushes in a turn probably isn't realistically going to happen to level your Ezreal. And at the end of the day, you do need removal to actually get the job done. It's really weird to me that this came out in a pseudo region locked format. It's not like you were looking at your leftover regions trying to figure out what Ezreal deck to play and went, oh, my Ionia is taken up elsewhere. Let me play the Shadow Isle version because that's what I have left. No, that's not what we're seeing here. This was an active choice to play the Shadow Isle Ezreal deck. And maybe the Teemo backup package is what we're kind of hoping will carry us through some of these more late game matchups. We do see 3 Shrooms in the hand can level the Teemo and get it in this turn. There is a Troll Chant on the side of Soga, though, so the Teemo not actually going to be able to hit the Nexus.
No, unfortunately not. And it always feels bad playing Teemo. It's all you want to do is just get these sweet, sweet Nexus strikes off, and it just feels like somebody always has a way to prevent that from happening. We will get the level up here, but like you said, we'll likely be able to prevent this from happening.
And I feel like this is one of the matchups where the Teemo actually should be able to get a lot of value.
Mm-hmm.
Your opponent is playing a slower deck. The Shrooms are going to get a lot of value there. The sort of awkward part is that because the damage is so spread out, all of their healing is going to continue to get them back into it. You don't really get to one-shot your opponent with Ezreal in a deck like this. But the bigger part is that the only removal that they have for Teemo is Avalanche or Icequake, which we currently don't see any copies of in Soga's hand. Just pretty well timed with that Troll Chant to actually stop this one, but we're only a turn off of the Ice Pillar coming down and the Teemo then being vulnerable to that once we get the stronger units cleared off the board.
Now, what I will say is that Troll Chant really just delayed the inevitable. We do see Icequake here that will likely be able to clear this Teemo, as well as the Chump Wump for that matter, so we'll see if that's something that we get headed into turn 8 here. I imagine we'll see probably both Guided Touches, Boulevard's favorite card, being played this turn. And then that'll work perfectly. I mean, that'll head into turn 8 with not only 8 mana, but 3 spell mana. And that just seems really, really good on the side of Soga here.
I was actually a little surprised not to see Vengeance come out onto the Trundle. But I think what you're concerned about is if your opponent plays a second Trundle, then they get to play 2 Pillars next turn, and that does mean that your Teemo will have the vulnerable and will die. So I think we're just kind of, once again, going in for this big Teemo attack, and I don't, it's not a big Teemo attack. You're going to double the amount of Shrooms in your opponent's deck, but I don't think that's overall going to have an impact on the game when your opponent has a 7-mana card in their hand that says heal 10 and get a 0-mana Aurelion Soul.
Fresh Lobster would argue otherwise with you, okay? Shrooms matter. Okay, Shrooms win games, Boulevard. Okay, lest we forget the top deck Shroom on the final turn of the game, okay?
Look, Shrooms matter when you're playing Karma Ezreal mirrors and no other time.
Do we have a Shroom count? Do we know how many are actually in the deck?
It is currently 15.
It's that. So, right now, it's not really going to matter.
Well, I think it's closer to 13. Yeah. I think he has top decked a couple of those.
If we do see, so it looks like maybe not going for the Icequake. So if this Teemo does get another attack through, the Shrooms will begin to matter. Right now, it's probably not going to be too impactful. We might see 2 or 3 for the rest of the game, but doubling again, we might start to see maybe 5 or 6 for the rest of the game.
I don't know that matters, though, just because I could draw 10 Shrooms off of this card, but then I play Revitalizing Roar onto my Aurelion Soul. All of the Shrooms are out of my deck. I'm back up to 10. My Aesol gets to not quite level this turn. Actually, I think Aesol does get to level because Trundle is going to go up to 8 attack, 9 attack?
2, 3, 8.
3, 4? Yeah, 9 attack.
Oh, yeah, the Pillar's an 8 cost, right? So, yep.
Yep. The Pillar, the 2 Icequakes, and the Aurelion Soul.
Yeah, so I got to agree with you as to the Shroom point, right? Because in this particular matchup, so sure, it feels good having a lot of Shrooms. You'll deal damage to your opponent. there's so much heal in this matchup where the Ezreal deck pretty much from the beginning of the game just has to understand, okay, well, I'm trying to set up a 20-0 turn. That's what needs to happen. Because, yeah, sure, we could keep doing damage with these shrooms, but Revitalizing Roar, Guiding Touch, there's so many different options in this deck to heal. If the Teemo wasn't actively doing damage and wasn't putting shrooms in the deck, these cards would just come out anyways and just not heal for anything, right? They're just going to get used for the sake of being used. So the Teemo just kind of, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's going to be as useful as it would usually be.
It's too long-term of a plan for the way that Legends of Runeterra is designed.
Which is why there's no hardcore Teemo deck, unfortunately. One day.
I could do without it.
I'm sure you and half the other people in the entire Legends of Runeterra community could deal without it.
I don't need it.
Well, it's not like Teemo's tilting or anything. What are you talking about?
Keep it. In Hearthstone, I was okay with things like bombs because there was at least that little bit of play around where I could fill up my hand and overdraw the bombs. Can't do that in Legends of Runeterra. Even if you burn a card, the shrooms fall off of it into your lap.
And you can control. Yeah, like you said, you can control the bombs a little bit more. Shrooms just go where they land. Like it doesn't matter. So.
I do like Revitalizing Roar onto the Aurelion Soul here, just because I don't think you're going to find a bigger target to get your life total back up. The mana that you save doesn't really matter. The health that you're getting doesn't matter immediately, but I just don't think you're going to find a better time to play it than right now. And that does let you get this down and level it up. You have the Guiding Touch onto the Trundle if there is something like a Get Excited coming down onto it or a Gotcha.
Yeah, no, this feels great. I mean, this is one of the best Revitalizing Roars, honestly, that I've seen since this deck has become a thing. Getting it right on turn 10, or actually, in this case, turn 9, it's because of Warding Stones were already on turn 10. Being able to get the Aurelion Soul out early and still have 6 mana just seems really, really good. And wow, okay. Vile Feast into Vengeance to kill the Aurelion Soul right away. Shut that bad boy down, and there's no response to this.
No, we did find the Great Beyond, though, and that'll turn off the Teemo.
Yeah, that will turn off the Teemo. We also have these Ice Quakes that it doesn't really seem like Soga has been able to find a good use for the entire game. Like it, from the very beginning, I was like, yeah, we have Teemo on the field. Ice Quake makes sense, but he's always had such a wide field setup that he just never really has had a good opportunity to use it. And now getting these elusive blockers really isn't even pressured to use it at all.
I mean, look at this. This Teemo's been on board for the entire game,
Yeah.
I believe, and hasn't actually been able to hit the Nexus since he leveled up on, like, turn 5. And now will never get the opportunity. I also feel like the last couple times we saw this deck, the player also got kind of clogged up on these 3 Harrowings. I think we should stop spectating the Ezreal players as... I feel like we're doing this to them.
We do everything to them. Isn't that how that works? Like, we just constantly
It's
cast
empowering. I want to intentionally do it. I want them to know it was me.
I mean, so because we have all 3 Harrowings, do we just play the Ezreal and just attack with both elusive units now and have them die?
That sounds so wrong.
Because there's no Ezreals that have died yet, right? So I feel like having an Ezreal, you almost need an Ezreal to die right now just to get some sort of better value out of the Harrowing. Because what else is Harrowing summoning right now? A Chump Wump and a Chump Wump. Like not a whole lot, and it looks like we are going to go ahead and summon this Ezreal. Whether or not we attack remains to be seen. Now we see the Ice Quake come out, and this will.
Yeah, and that's really big.
Yeah.
Even if your opponent did follow up with something like another copy of Teemo, you do still have that Avalanche and Avalanche mana. You would lose your Troll Ravager, but that's about it.
And yet another reason why regeneration is so damn good, because 2 of these units are going to heal right back up to full health. There's the other Teemo. So the Teemo is now going to get killed by the Avalanche, but because the regeneration is until the end of the turn, you are going to lose your Troll, like Boulevard mentioned. So actually, you could guide, or no, only 4 mana. Never mind. I was gonna say Guiding Touch, but no go.
I feel like Soga is just going to take this Teemo hit. He's got 25 shrooms in deck, would go up to 50. But even if you're averaging 2 shroom draws a turn, you're not dying to that anytime soon.
No, yeah, I mean, that's 10 turns, right? I mean, you got to figure you might draw more one turn. So let's call it 6 or 7 turns. And I do think that's enough for Soga to win the game. But secretly in the back of my mind, I am pulling for this Teemo to win the game. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah. I mean, like, so you play the Acel here. Even if you had played the Great Beyond, you know, you are getting 1, 2, 3, I think like 10 damage pushed through off of this. Oh, actually, the Living Legends, I think, means you're getting 11 damage pushed through by the Trundle challenging the Teemo.
Is Living Legends just like a requirement that like Aurelion Sol pulls that card all the time? Like, I feel like every time we see it leveled up,
feels
it's
like
always in hand.
And not only is that a good card, but it gives him that last expensive card that he needs to behold for the Trundle to just present lethal here. And at 7 HP, there's nothing that Non-Goo is going to have available. It doesn't have any Vengeances left. Did have to use that earlier onto the Aurelion Soul. And Soga should just be picking up this 3-0, except we're going to see this Thermo Beam that I somehow missed down onto the Trundle. Where was that hiding in his hand?
I'm gonna go right there with you and say that I also did not see that Thermo Beam. I think we were just so focused on the 3 Harrowings in hand that
I mean, you still win because you just attack with Acel and Troll Ravager. Yeah, even throw in the Wording Stone for good measure.
Yeah, because why not? That 0 damage always helps. Wow. All right. So